Hello and welcome to another Let's Play. Me, GamerWolfSix. The Sileo, Tales of a New Dawn. Before we start, if you're interested in playing this game, you can get it for free on itch.io. But if you want to support the people that make this game and or get the news version earlier, you can go to Patreon. $5 a month, $54 a year. So, on the last Let's Play, we came to the kitchen to greet our guy Ty, and was like, can you give money to Diego because reasons? And then also, after a bunch of talking, we're like, oh right, Spencer, he needs to talk with you. Just like, ooh, Spencer, sure, we'll get him and bring him to my office and lock the door. But then the main character did something I wouldn't do, which was invade their privacy, because, now we're having our ear up to the event. But now we're not the main character, we're Ty, so maybe listen in on the conversation. And also, it has the same music that is an echo, I'm pretty sure. It could be the smoke room. Just saying. Also, Kerbal Space Program. I haven't heard that one in a hot minute. Spencer took a seat in front of my desk before calmly waiting for me to take my position on the opposite side. I locked the door behind us, making sure that whatever manner of discussion lay in store, it would be not interrupted by unexpected company. I circled around the perimeter of my desk, eventually standing before my leather chair. I then took a seat so that Spencer and I were sitting face to face, with only the distance of the desk between us. Truth be told, I didn't have the slightest idea why he had come, especially without any warning. If he had phoned ahead, I could have visited him instead, or he could have met somewhere less conspicuous, or we could have. Although I knew full well that if he had come here, he had done so without a proper reason for doing so. He knew that I would not take such risks so kindly. It's interesting about the risks, like what is this about? I assume your visit was not as inspired by recent additions to my liquor cabinet. You assume right, although it was a terrific excuse, nonetheless. Genuine Ortegan firewater. And to think, it was little more than a year back that you tried to peddle that vile brandy. For the record, I always quite enjoyed it, but I will concede that your influence on my inventory was a very positive one indeed, if a little on the expensive side. I'm glad they're in agreement on that, at least. And humor aside, the lure of a fine drink is insufficient reason alone to pay you a visit. What with how things... well, you understand. I sighed, knowing full well what Spencer was luring to. But whatever his reasons were, I felt as though his presence here was something of an irresponsible action, something of a dire risk. On the one hand, Spencer's presence had not gone unnoticed, and his name being mentioned by both Adrian and Diego in recent days. Not to mention the other significant risk after all. The other significance? How would I explain this encounter to Adrian? More questions than answers. Just how much slack could his faith grant me in situations like this? I shook my head with a palpable sense of concern before making eye contact with my visitor once more. He was as calm as ever, his emotions carefully disguising the lack thereof, his mask so comfortable and perfectly fitting. But I knew how hard it was for him, beneath those layers of masterful composure. The sooner we get this over and done with, the less suspicion we will attract. As good as it is to see you, of course. Very well then. I have merely come to return something that belongs to you. Question mark? Spencer's jacket was no mere imitation. Despite the condition suggesting that it was almost brand new, it was something of an antique, perfectly maintained by Spencer's highly skilled tailorship. Indeed, the tale surrounding Spencer's attire was something of a fitting metaphor for the man himself. But it was not the jacket that interested me here. More so that Spencer had reached his hand inside to retrieve whatever object he had in his possession. I knew it felt full well that inside the jacket were several hidden pockets which, except for cash, were only ever used to transport the most precious cargo. At long last, his hand emerged, and an unknown object held carefully within. He extended his reach, and motioned me to hold my hand beneath his own. When Spencer finally released the object from his grasp, I recognized it without delay. It was a ring, forged from pure gold, its circumference studded with ruby after precious ruby. I was kind of wondering, did these guys have a thing between each other? And a gold ring that's not inconspicuous. I held the ring in my hand, my gaze transfixed. He was right. It was something which held deep meaning to me, which was precisely why I'd given it to Spencer in the first place. But I understood why I had returned it, though that did little to ease the sting. As insignificant as this moment seemed, it symbolized finality, and it took every last inch of restraint not to burst into tears. I closed my eyes instead, as I clutched the ring tightly, mourning what I had lost in the silence before I opened my desk drawer and fishing around in search of something specific. Spencer watched quietly as I retrieved a small, worn length of cord. I combined the two objects before tying the ends of the cord in a knot, before throwing it over my head, knowing it to fall right into place around my neck and beneath the collar of my shirt, with the ring hanging from the bottom, as its rubies glistened brilliantly in the light of my office. Deep down, I knew this moment would come, but if part of me had still hoped, wished things could have been different. Spencer sighed, his voice shakenly, slightly, as his near bulletproof composure seemed to falter, his own emotions getting the better of him, if only for a brief moment. My apologies. Contrary to what you may think, this never gets any easier. Stop apologizing. This whole damn mess, it was not your fault. It was never your fault. It was mine. Silence. A look of annoyance spread across his face, much like it did every time that this conversational ground. I would apologize. He would refuse, instead placing the blame on his own shoulders. I knew exactly what he would say next, only because he had done it several times already. I knew better, but still allowed this to happen. There were so many times when I could have prevented it, and I did not. I got carried away. If only we could have found a way. Ty, you know this as well as I do. You have to put all of this behind you. Forget about it all. Try to move on. We're only so easy to do. I try, in earnest, but sometimes I feel as though I have backed myself into a corner. With Adrian? Yes, and you're right. So is Lucas. The best thing is to just forget about all of this. Move on. Not let this whole thing become my undoing. And I am trying. God, I'm trying. But I felt that you were... Ty, do you feel the same way about Adrian? I sighed, shaking my head, yet again. I knew the answer deep within my heart. An answer that I struggled to make any sense of. Adrian is so very different, and yet... Inexplicably, yes. Yes, I do. And I do not even understand how it's possible. You may agree, may not agree, but you find yourself in a near-perfect situation given the circumstances. As difficult as it may be, you simply need to soldier on. This will get easier in time. That I promise you. You know, he and I shared a glass of firewater and a pleasant chat earlier on. What? I stared at Spencer in disbelief. For the entire time that I had known him, Spencer had maintained significant distance from everybody and everything, regardless of who they were, or if they were trustworthy. Lucas wound up being one of the key exceptions, and it was not something that had been intentional. Instead, Lucas had grown suspicious. In the beginning, I regaled him with stories about the fascinating man they had met, but eventually, I became privy to the realities of Spencer's existence. Realities that I could not share with anyone, even my closest friend. Is this going to be some weird thing where, like, this guy is eternally young or something like that? Like some kind of vampire guy? You know, a nice guy, but still, like, he's immortal and whatnot. Lucas's suspicion surrounding my sudden change in transparency resulted in him going out of his way to find out what was going on. Eventually, Spencer and I had little choice but to clue him in. He already knew too much. At that point, it's better to pull the trigger ourselves than leave him in the dark. We let him in on everything and had him promise to share in keeping it all a secret. It's weird, it's like, promise to share in keeping it all a secret. He agreed, and gradually, Spencer began to form trust with Lucas as well. But the entire situation was a happy accident. A happy accident being the closest Spencer had ever gotten to actually reaching out to somebody the entire time we had known each other. Hence, my complete and total disbelief when Spencer told me that he had shared a drink with Adrian. Are you crazy? What do you think you're doing? I was attempting to confirm your suspicion. We spoke for some time, and there were no obvious signs. But that is hardly confirmation of anything. Of what? But what if... Relax. With such substantial time spent in my presence, it would become obvious. You'll need to serve in the coming days, and notify me accordingly. Worry not. We can take care of this. Okay, before it was like, oh, they were in a relationship, but kind of like a secret one, I guess. But now it's like, does he have some kind of illness that's contagious? It was foolish of Spencer to do such a thing. I worried about Adrian. Worried about what he might be going through. But in a way, Spencer was right. This way, we would know. And once we knew, we could then act. What the fuck are you guys talking about? Besides, I know he is suspicious of me. With any luck, our meeting will have eased his wariness. What did you tell him? Nothing that you would not have, I can assure you. But I know someone is digging, watching my movements. Tell me, is Adrian computer literate? I work for the company that designed my point-of-sale software, but I do not know rightly the extent of his skill yet, or specifically what he specializes in. Why? Whatever it is, they're using a backdoor to access the government records. And they are thorough. They have found things I thought I had scrubbed clean long years ago. How would you know that? You think it's Adrian? I do not know. It is possible. Or it could be somebody he knows. At least I hope that's the case. There's no way you can trace it? No, wait, there's no way you can trace it? I have done that. The connection is coming from a rogue virtual machine at the university. That is how they gain access to the secure domain. If I could obtain university logs, I could track the origin of the connection, but getting access to those logs has proven difficult. Regardless of whether Adrian is responsible or not, there are too many unknowns for him not to have theories or concerns. Ignorance, perhaps would have been bliss, as opposed to becoming conscious of that which he cannot know. I felt an incredible pang of guilt. I was always many things, but a liar I was not. So instead, when I could not speak the truth, I merely did not speak at all, leaving huge chunks of important information concealed beneath a thick, black cloud of secrecy. After all, ignorance is often sometimes bliss. Not only had this made things very complicated with Adrian, but it also potentially put Spencer in danger. My heart sank. I so desperately wished I had just lied. Just made something up. Anything up. To obfuscate the truth and keep Spencer out of harm's way. More questions. Also, fancy words. But granted, I knew that one. I don't know what it means exactly, but still. And to keep the situation with Adrian from becoming so very complicated and messy. But I had not, and as such, had screwed up in the most monumental fashion imaginable. I am so sorry. It is my fault. I could not bring myself to lie to him. Tai, none of this was even remotely fair on you. Every error, every mistake, every slip of the tongue. The blame can only be traced back to me. I could say little to ease his concerns. But I did what I could. I could say little to ease his concerns. I do not rightly know if my actions aren't beneficial. I do hope I have not made things worse, but I hope that I brought him some reassurance, that I was able to ease some of his suspicion. I hate this. I hate that you have to take such risk for me. It is not fair. I do not have to. I want to, because I know that I let you down. Do not think for a moment that you could have convinced me not to. I know. I thank you, Spencer, for everything. Spencer smiled at me, sending his kindness radiating through the room. Finally, stood up from his chair in his usual delicate manner, his smile unbroken as he spoke once again. You take good care of that ring, understand? A feeling you might be needing it soon. I grasped the makeshift necklace once more. Spence was right. I'd hoped and prayed that the next time I gifted someone, that it would be the last time. Hey, Spence, one thing before you go. What is it? I know I should not say so. I know it's wrong, but I simply must say so. I need you to hear it. I... Instead, when I pressed my ear up to the exhaust, the singing sounds of voices drifted into earshot from afar. It is difficult to hear them clearly, but sufficient that I would be able to grasp what was being discussed. I eased into a more comfortable position and strained my ears in an attempt to pick up on as much of the conversation as I could. I know I should not say so. I know it's wrong, simply must say it. And that was the moment where I heard the words that caused my heart to shatter. I will never, ever stop loving you, no matter what. Okay, so I know I talked a bit, but still, it is 20 minutes right now. Like, I know this is like, oh no, what happened here? But it's like, okay. It took 20 minutes from me being in there to do it. And yeah, there could be some stuff, but it's like, seriously, did the main character take 20 minutes to go all the way around there and stick his ear up to there? Ty. There was a long and deafening silence in the room that remained unbroken for the longest time. Finally, the sound of footsteps, followed by the sound of departure. You should probably run back to the front. Or, I don't know, wait. Say you go into the bathroom or something. It seems though I had arrived just as the conversation was coming to an end. But I heard everything I needed to hear. I knew that Ty was in love with somebody else, all the while in a relationship with me. He had exerted so much energy trying to convince me how committed he was to me and that he would never let me down. And yet, after what was I just an afterthought? How could any of that be true? As I re-entered the bar, the first person I saw was Spencer, who flashed me a kind smile as he walked past. I did not return the smile. I could not even bear to look at him. My mind was reduced to a swirling vortex of negative emotions and inexplicable dread. I did not rightly know how to feel about any of it. I felt nothing. Or was it everything all at once, characterized by an overwhelming numbness? Was it so much that I simply couldn't process it? Was there very little that there was nothing for me to process? I felt strangely vindicated. I had been right to be suspicious all along, and to remember all that crap I had said about faith. Pah! Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. Yeah, I knew. I was a prize idiot. I couldn't believe I'd let myself fall for it all. I returned to my position behind the counter, where Diego was waiting. He took but one look at me, and his face dropped like a stone. Diego knew right away. He knew they heard something that brought this entire house of cards crumbling down. I leaned on the counter, my eyes unfocused and drifting out into space. I couldn't believe any of this. Couldn't believe Ty. God fucking damn it. Such an idiot. Hello, gentlemen. I apologize for my absence. Ty returned, his neck bearing a ring. That seems to be... You really just having that right out there? I'm not sure what the whole thing is between you guys, but it's like, hey, if you're... ring I had not seen before, and one I had little desire to ask him about. After all, I had more important things on my mind. He seemed somewhat subdued by his first appearance. Although, having noticed my shift in mood, this didn't last long. Adrian? Is everything okay? Oh, yeah. Adrian's just, I'm fine. Yeah, what he said, he's fine. I see. Very well then. Thank you for taking care of everything in my absence. No problem. It was my pleasure. Terrific. I want to thank you as well, Diego, for looking after everything while Adrian and I were out of town. I apologize for having relied on you so much for you heavily during recent times. Yeah, whatever. It takes for you two to be happy, I guess. How unlike you, Diego, but I am glad to hear that you are in high spirits. Oops, sorry, thought that was the end of it. I really appreciate your help and everything. And everything was surprisingly good in good order when I arrived back this morning. Surprisingly, it wasn't too bad. Turns out I'm pretty good barman and stuff. Indeed. Well, part of the reason I brought Russell on board was to give you something of a break. It means that were Adrian and I to both go somewhere together like before, there'll be somebody else to share in the burden. And speaking of Russell, I must say he has almost finished the catering work, and he certainly has me impressed. I'm very glad to have him on his immense talents on board. But I digress. I don't collect. The other reason of this topic is that I would like to offer you the rest of the day off, Diego. And do not worry, you'll be paid in full. My treat. What? Really? Indeed. And do be sure to check your account balance this evening. You may find a little surprise waiting for you. It is my way of thanking you. Wow, great. Thanks, Ty. You don't need to thank me. You have earned it fair and square. And do not worry about cleaning up or anything. You may leave it to me. You may want, you want me to go now? You make it sound as though I'm trying to get rid of you. I can assure you that it's not the case. But certainly, would you like to finish up now? I'm quite ready to take over. Oh, well, Diego looked towards me, a look of concern and frustration in his eyes. I needed a little explanation after all. It needed a little explanation after all. I knew exactly how it felt being in the dark, but Ty was practically refusing him the opportunity. A coincidence? Or perhaps my distinctly sour mood had raised his suspicions? Maybe he was trying to dispose of Diego, so we could speak to one another in private. Or was it just being crazy, forming wild, far-fetched conspiracies, lacking sufficient evidence? Perhaps it was just a coincidence. Sure. Thanks, Ty. See you guys. Have fun. I'm quite sure we'll thank you, Diego. We will. Thank you, Diego. Yeah. Diego grabbed his things and semi-begrudgingly began his journey homeward. Within mere seconds following his departure, the buzzing within the pockets commenced. Within my pocket commenced? Message after message, no doubt originating from concerned and still overly nosy Diego, despite desperate to find out what the story was. I think we might cut it here because, this is going to be a scene in and of itself. And also, I really need to go to the water closet. Or the dunny, as people would call it. But, yeah, that's going to be the end of this Let's Play. So, please comment, because I like comments. Tell me what you like, dislike, tips, tricks, otherwise, if you like my YouTube and would like to see it grow, then please like, subscribe, and share the videos that grow, and please understand your animals type to help control the pet population. And if you want to play this game, it's available free on itch.io, but if you want to support the people that make this game and are getting the news version earlier, you can go to Patreon, where it's $5 a month, $54 a year. And until next time, let's say, me, GamerWolfSix, Sileo, Tales of a New Dawn. So thanks and see ya.